Good evening, this is Dhammasukha Meditation Center in Annapolis, Missouri. Welcome. And this evening, Venerable Vimalaramsi is going to do a talk about Majjhima Nikaya number 19, the Dvedhāvitakka Sutta, two kinds of thought. And the date is February the 10th. 2011.
Okay. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living in Sawati in Jeta's Grove, Anathan Pandika's park. There he addressed the monks thus. Monks, venerable sir, they replied, the Blessed One said this. Monks, before my enlightenment, before my awakening, while I was still only an unawakened bodhisattva, it occurred to me, suppose that I divide my thoughts into two classes. Then I set on one side thoughts of sensual desire, thoughts of ill will, and thoughts of cruelty. I set on the other side thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of non-ill will, and thoughts of non-cruelty. What are thoughts of non-ill will? This is not a quiet time. This is a time to answer.
That can harm others or yourself.
What have you been practicing today?
Mettā.
Okay, that's non-ill will.
Okay.
What are thoughts of non-cruelty?
Thoughts of not harming.
Thoughts of non-cruelty. Compassion. As I abided thus diligent, ardent, and resolute, a thought of sensual desire arose in me. I understood thus. This thought of sensual desire has arisen in me. This leads to my own affliction, to others' affliction, and to the affliction of both. It obstructs wisdom, causes difficulty, and leads away from Nibbana. Any time in Buddhist scripture where you hear the word wise or wisdom, it's talking about dependent origination. In other words, how the process works. Then when I considered this leads to my own affliction, it subsided in me. When I considered this leads to others' affliction, it subsided in me. When I considered this leads to the affliction of both, it subsided in me. When I considered this obstructs wisdom, causes difficulty, and leads away from Nibbana, it subsided in me. Whenever a thought of sensual desire arose in me, I abandoned it, removed it, did away with it. As I abided thus diligent, ardent, and resolute, a thought of ill will rose in me. I understood thus. This thought of ill will has arisen in me. This leads to my own affliction, to others' affliction, and to the affliction of both. It obstructs wisdom, causes difficulty, and leads away from Nibbana. When I considered thus, this leads to my own affliction, it subsided in me. When I considered thus, this leads to others' affliction, it subsided in me. When I considered this leads to the affliction of both, it subsided in me. When I considered this obstructs wisdom, causes difficulty, and leads away from nibbana, it subsided in me. Whenever a thought of ill will arose in me, I abandoned it, removed it, and did away with it. As I abided thus diligent, ardent, and resolute, a thought of cruelty arose in me. I understood thus: this thought of cruelty has arisen in me. This leads to my own affliction, to others' affliction, and to the affliction of both. It obstructs wisdom, causes difficulties, and leads away from nibbana. When I considered thus, then we've got a ... This leads to my own affliction. It subsided in me. When I considered this leads to others' affliction, it subsided in me. When I considered this leads to the affliction of both, it subsided in me. When I considered this obstructs wisdom, causes difficulty, and leads away from nibbana, it subsided in me. Whenever the thought of cruelty arose in me, I abandoned it, removed it, and did away with it. Now, this is a very important sentence. Whatever a person frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will be the inclination of their mind. If one frequently thinks and ponders upon thoughts of sensual desire, they have abandoned the thought of renunciation to cultivate the thought of sensual desire. When their mind inclines to thoughts of then their mind inclines to thoughts of sensual desire. If one frequently thinks and ponders on thoughts of ill will or cruelty, he has abandoned the thought of non-ill will and non-cruelty to cultivate the thought of ill will or cruelty. And his mind inclines to thoughts of ill will or cruelty. So what you constantly dwell on, that's the inclination of your mind. So your mind is going to incline to think those kinds of thoughts. This is one of the reasons that when you're sitting in meditation, I tell you, don't get caught in the content of the thought. If you get caught in the content of the thought, then you're going to think it some more. Right? So what do you do when distracting thoughts start to arise? Right? In other words, you let the content of the thought be there without keeping your attention on it. In order to be able to let go of your attachments to certain kinds of thoughts, certain kinds of feelings, certain ideas, certain opinions, you have to stop feeding those. And you feed those thoughts with your attention. Okay? So you let go of that. You release it. And then any tension in your head, in your mind, you've got to relax. And when you do that, there is a mind that is clear, a mind that is bright, a mind that is very alert and there's no thoughts in it. Now, you smile and bring that mind back to your object of meditation. That's how you purify your mind. So it doesn't matter how many times certain kinds of thoughts come up. What do you do with that? Do you indulge in those thoughts? Do you try to keep those thoughts going? At the start of the meditation, of course you do, because you're not used to that. And you get caught, and then you're caught for a period of time before you go, oh, wait a minute, let's 6R that. Now, the 6 R's, there's 6 steps in the 6 R's. I wish I had another finger. But you don't say in your mind each one of those R's. The 6 R's are a flow. You recognize, release, relax, smile, come back. It gets to be a flow. So you don't have to mentally say each one of those steps while you're doing it. Okay? Now, what happens when you do that? Well, you've let go and you've purified your mind. But because your attachment is strong, your mind is going to go back to that. Because in the past, you thought and pondered on that situation, that opinion, that idea. So you're going to be bouncing back and forth for a little while. And that's okay, because every time you use the 6 R's, you're improving your mindfulness a little bit. Before long, you'll start to stay on your object of meditation a little bit longer. The distraction doesn't last for as long. So, what you're learning how to do when you practice this is learn how to think and ponder on a wholesome object instead of an unwholesome object. What's an unwholesome object?
Any thought that keeps your mind's attention off the present moment in your object of meditation.
Any thought that you identify with, you take personally. Now, you can be sitting and be completely happy, alert, and all of a sudden anger comes up. Now, did you decide that it's time to get angry? Did you decide that, well, I haven't been angry for all day, I might as well get angry now? No, of course not. It arose because the conditions were right for it to arise. What you do with what arises in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. Now, because you thought and pondered on these kind of thoughts, these kind of ideas, these opinions, these concepts, in the past, that's why they come up into the present. Now, it's your choice what you do with that. You can indulge in it, just like you always do, and get caught and make yourself even more miserable. That's your choice. Or you can change your old habit into a new habit. And you can 6R and come back to your wholesome object, wishing your spiritual friend happiness. So, the more times you do that, the more you change your old bad habit of indulging in thoughts and feelings and opinions and all that other nonsense, which really it is nonsense, and you start to develop a new habit of having an uplifted mind. Oh, you heard me tell you last night, I want you to have fun with this. I don't want you to get serious with it. Anytime your mind gets serious, who's serious with it? I am. Who wants to control it? I do. Who wants to make it stop or continue? Either way, I do. Now, we're made up of 5 things. You have a physical body. There's feeling. Now, this is not emotional feeling. This is just feeling. Feeling is a pleasant feeling or painful feeling or neither painful nor pleasant. You have perception. Perception is the part of your mind that names things. You look at these dogs and you say, black. Okay, perception is the thing that called up that color. Okay, that has memory in it with it too. But it's a thing that names things. You have thoughts. You have consciousness. I'll tell you how any emotional feeling works. Every emotional feeling works this way. A painful feeling comes up. I don't like that painful feeling. I want it to be different than it is. And then you try to control the feeling with the thoughts. Now, feelings are one thing and thoughts are something else. They're not the same. And this is a habit that we get into. We get into trying to think our feeling and make our feeling be the way we want it to be. And that's the cause of more suffering. So what you want to do is and
Smile.
And you just did it.
Laugh. Laugh. Oh, yeah. Gotta laugh.
You're not supposed to be helping.
Helping, she just laughs.
Look at how your mind feels when you laugh. Your mind feels light. Your mind feels uplifted. The more you can bring joy up, your mind becomes very alert when you have joy in it. Your mind becomes very agile and clear. And when your mind starts to get heavy, it's easier to notice that, so you can 6R that and then have more joy. So having more joy in your practice actually helps you out a lot. Anytime you start taking things seriously, you're causing yourself suffering. It's that simple. And it's your choice. You can get caught in trying to think your feelings away. Doesn't work, but you can do it all you want. You'll do it until you learn that you got to let go of those thoughts. They're just nonsense stuff coming through. Silky? Wow. We have trio dogs that snore at different pitches. See why we keep them around? Now, how does your mind feel? See, when you start getting serious and you start trying to control your feelings with your thoughts, you're thinking and pondering on an unwholesome object because it's not the way I want it to be. Now, what you have to do is first recognize that you're thinking and let go of those thoughts and relax. Bring up your smile. Radiate some loving kindness to yourself or to your spiritual friend. If your attachment is strong, you'll keep going back to it. That's fine. Do it again, and again, and again, and again, and again. It doesn't matter how many times your mind gets distracted. Doesn't matter at all. What matters is that you recognize it, you release it, you relax, you smile, you come back to your object of meditation. Your object of meditation is your home base. Okay? Always go home. Going home means going back to having that light mind, having that alert mind, having that mind that isn't identifying with the thoughts and feelings when they come up. So the more times you can do that, the more you're changing your old habit into a new habit. And the happier you become. Simple, right? Not easy, but simple. The hardest part is remembering. That's what mindfulness is. The function of mindfulness is to remember. I read an article in a Buddhist magazine where they were trying to define what mindfulness was. And this one teacher, been teaching for a long time, he says, it's remembering to remember to remember. What in the world is that supposed to mean? It's remembering to observe what your mind is doing in the present moment. Remembering to observe how your mind moves from one thing to another and what happens when it does that. So the more times you can let it be, relax, smile, and come back to your object of meditation, the more you're letting go of your old habits of thinking and acting. And a whole new world opens up. Now, sometimes there's people that come here and they're pretty depressed. And when they look at everything in the world, it's kind of black and white and gray. And after they're here for a little while, they start going, wow, the colors are really good around here. It's amazing. There's so many colors. Yeah, why? Because you stopped letting that depression, you stopped owning that depression. You stopped trying to think your feelings. And when you do that, the whole world starts to open up. Everything becomes easier. Everything becomes more fun. And I know that there's an awful lot, especially Vipassana teachers, that they don't want you to have fun. They don't want you to smile. You're supposed to know what suffering is, like nobody actually does. But they want you to suffer.
The end of suffering.
Yeah. Get right in the middle of it. Indulge in it as much as you can. David and I started meditating about the same time. He was actually a little bit before me. And we had the same teacher. And we had to know what suffering was, and boy did we ever do it.
He was a good teacher.
He was a great teacher for that. We really suffered a lot. Never did find out how you're supposed to make it stop.
We were kind of dumb student. We couldn't get past that first noble truth.
Well,
Yeah, we never did know why, really.
But the whole thing is, the reason that we suffer is because we hold on to opinions and ideas and concepts. We hold on to them tight. And when the world doesn't match that, then we start trying to think it so it will happen the way we want it. And thinking doesn't work. This is not a practice about thinking. We have to let go of our thinking and relax and smile. And then notice that tight mental fist that we have around that feeling. We don't like that feeling. We don't want it to be that way. Or we do like that feeling and we don't want it to stop. But feeling is only a feeling. It's just pleasant or unpleasant. And it's okay for that feeling to be there. Well, but it's painful when it hurts. Yeah, okay. So? It's just a feeling. And it's all right for that feeling to be there. It has to be all right, because that's the truth. When it hurts, it hurts. So what you have to do is let go of the tight mental hold. You know, when a painful feeling comes up, it's like taking one of these red-hot coals and putting it in your hand, and you say, you know, that hurts. So what your natural inclination to do is to squeeze it, and squeeze it, and squeeze it. And you go, wow, that really hurts. Well, yeah. So, open up and let it go. It's okay that it hurts. It's not yours anyway. You didn't ask it to come up. You didn't say, well, I haven't been in pain for a long time. I really need to get into my pain. That's what we did. And we indulged in it. But the Buddhist practice is not about grabbing onto anything. It's about opening up and letting it go. And then there's a lot of relief in that. When you finally realize these thoughts, these opinions, these ideas, these memories, whatever it happens to be, it's okay for them to be there. They're not yours anyway. It's just part of a dream that happened before. The only time you're really alive is when you're in the present moment. There's no such a thing as a future. There's no such a thing as a past. There's only what we're doing right here, right now. But we get so caught up in our thoughts, in our feelings, in our memories, in our desires for things to happen the way we want them to, that we cause ourselves immeasurable amounts of suffering. That's part of the human condition. So I'm teaching you not to be a human anymore. I'm teaching you how to be awake so that you can be in the present moment, and it's okay. Present moment is wonderful. There's no problem being in the present moment. It's when we lose our mindfulness and get caught by past experiences, wants for the future to be the way we want it to be, the fears, the anxieties, the depressions, the sadnesses. All of that stuff isn't real. It's all made up because those are where I am. And anytime you take those kind of things personally, you can look forward to suffering. And you'll keep suffering over and over and over and over until you finally learn it's not worth it. Let it go. It's nothing. It's more fun to have fun. Profound, isn't it? And it sounds odd. And this is one of the things that most teachers will not ever encourage. And it's to laugh. And this sounds odd. But when you laugh at how stupid your mind can be, welcome to the human race, we're all the same. We all have our own little quirks and our own little attachments, or whatever they happen to be. But when we laugh at ourselves for getting caught in this one, we're not caught anymore. You know, there's a sadness that comes up, or this fear, or anxiety, or whatever the catch of the day happens to be. When you laugh at yourself for being caught, it goes from I'm sad, I'm anxious, I'm afraid, to it's only this sadness, it's only being anxious, it's only this fear. Do I want to hold on to that? Got to be crazy for that one. It's easy to let it be. See, what laughing does is it puts a perspective. It changes your perspective from I'm that, and that happens to be this huge mountain of problem that's so big that you can't see over it, you can't see around it, you can't get underneath it. And it really gets kind of funny because I have some students that come and tell me, I tried laughing, it doesn't work. Well, it always works. It's not funny. Well, that's the very thing that makes me laugh. Look at how caught you are in that. It's okay to get caught. No problem. You can go away and be mad and call me a no good so-and-so because I laughed at you. And that's happened.
Yes, it happens a lot.
But the whole thing is when you start to actually see how silly it is that you're caught up in your thoughts and opinions and concepts and ideas and wants and desires and all this stuff. It really is funny. So when you laugh, all of a sudden that I drops away. And then it's just these different kinds of thoughts. Well, do I want to hang on to that? No, it's painful. Okay. Let it go. You ever had one of those kind of days that everything you tried to do just wasn't right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Today. And yesterday.
Yeah, and the day before.
I was gonna say, like, okay.
Didn't you say it was the last 5 days?
Yeah, and the only way to stay sane was to say, this is ridiculous. It's really funny.
So when you laugh, all of a sudden, it turns into an okay day. It's all right. There used to be a song, I don't remember who did it. I remember it when I was a teenager, and it went something like, Mama said there'd be days like this.
My mother said there would be days like
I
these.
don't need you to sing
Okay,
it, thank you.
That's what it was. My mother said there'd be days like these.
And what I got in the habit of doing was when I had those kind of days, was bringing up that song, and it always made me laugh. Yeah, there's days like this. It's okay. So what? And then everything starts working. When you're identifying with your thoughts and feelings and taking them personally, everything is an emergency.
It's horrendous mountains. I mean,
Mount Subaru. That's what my old town master used to say. Mount Subaru. Mountain's so big, you never can go around it.
But when you laugh, all of a sudden you see it's just this little tiny bump. No big deal. So what? How much do you get caught up in your thoughts? How much do you start identifying with your feelings? How much suffering do you cause yourself? Meditate teaches you that you don't have to make yourself suffer for so long. You might get caught for a little while. One of my favorite stories is a lady came when I was teaching in Malaysia. She walked into the monastery, and as soon as she walked in, I wanted to walk out. She had so much anger and sadness and frustration, and it was just amazing how much negative energy she had. But she came to talk to me, so I couldn't run away. So I said, "What's happening?" And she said, "Well, I'm married and I have 3 kids. The oldest one is just starting to be a teenager, and then a couple of younger kids. And my husband got mad at me because I was always complaining. And he told me, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And he didn't. And it made her furious. So she said, what am I supposed to do with this? And I said, well, why don't you try practicing some loving kindness? So she said, when am I supposed to do that? I don't have time. I have 3 kids. 2 of them go to school in the morning. They're out at lunch. The other one goes to school at 1 o'clock, comes is out at 6 o'clock. I have a job. I'm running around. I'm doing all of these things for my children. I don't have time to meditate. And I said, well, meditate before they get up. She said, well, maybe I'll be able to do that. I can do that about 25 minutes a day. And then they went, she and her whole family went down to Johor, which is right close to Singapore. But you have to have your passports to get into Singapore. And she forgot the passports. But her husband didn't. So her husband said, I'm going to go to Singapore. And she wanted to go to Singapore. But she had no way of doing it. She didn't have her passports with her for all the kids and everybody. So the husband went to Singapore, and she held a grudge like you couldn't believe. She was mad about that for 2 weeks. And I said, you got to keep meditating, keep going, keep going. You have to forgive him for not meeting your expectation. You have to just let it be. So she kept practicing, and he would do some other kind of thing that really got her ticked off, and she would stay mad instead of for 2 weeks. She'd stay mad for 10 days, which is a major improvement. And as time went by, he'd do something else, and she'd be mad for a week. And then it was 4 days. And then it was 1 day. And over a period of time, now this did take time because she only did it for 25 minutes a day, and she never took a retreat with me. Over a few years, the time that she was angry about things that he did, because he continued on being the same turkey that he he kept on acting in the same way and cutting her out of things, and just all kinds of nonsense stuff. But the time that she would stay angry became less and less and less. And finally, I was getting ready to leave and come back here, and she had her husband drive her to a shop. She had to do something really quick, and then she was going to get a ride back home. And she told him, it's just going to take me 5 or 10 minutes. I'll be out in that time. And as soon as she got out of the car and into the shop, he took off. And she came back, and he wasn't there. And she stayed mad for almost a minute before she said, well, it's a nice day for a walk. And she walked home. Thankfully, it was close enough that she could do that. But she didn't hold the grudge. Now, over time, she let go of her attachment to anger and ill will and developed loving kindness. So as she was walking, she was sending loving kindness. She wasn't thinking about what a turkey was, how unthoughtful he was, how nasty he was. She wasn't thinking about any of that. She let it go. Now, the meditation will teach you what you think and ponder on. That's the inclination of your mind. But what this really teaches you is that you cause your own pain. Okay? There's nothing out there that causes your pain. What you think and ponder on, that's the inclination of your mind. If you think it didn't meet my expectation the way I wanted it to, then as you carry on with the rest of your day, how many times does it come up? Same words, same order, just like it was on a tape deck. I said this, they said that, I should have said this, I'm right, they're wrong. And then it fades away a little bit, and then it comes up again, just like it's on a tape deck. Anytime you have repeat thoughts. Who has an attachment? Who is causing their own pain? So you can do that all you want. It's up to you. Or you can let go of your strong desire for things to be the way you want them to be, when you want them to be that way, and stay in the present moment. Now, what happens if you get in a fight? It doesn't matter who you fight with. You both start talking at the same time. Know that one? You know what you said, but because you were talking, you didn't hear what they said? One of my best friends that just died a little while ago, Sri Damananda. People would get married and they'd ask him to come and give them advice. And his advice was always this: never talk at the same time. You listen to what the other person has to say. You don't say anything. And then when they get done, you say, "Thank you very much," and now you say what you need to say. He said, if you can do this one simple thing, you're going to have a good life together, because you're giving each other respect. You're giving each other the space to blow stuff off. Now, it's funny, there's a lot of students that come around and all of a sudden they come in stomping in and this person did that, no, and they're going on, and I just sit there. And then I start sending them some loving kindness. And before long, they start calming down. And then they start talking without yelling. And before long, they're just chit-chatting this or that. And before long, then they say, well, I've really got to go. I got to do this or that. Thanks, Reverend. And I didn't say anything. It happens. I can't take your pain away. Your pain is your pain. That's the truth. The definition of compassion is allowing that other person to have their pain, but you love them no matter what. You send loving and kind thoughts to them, and their emotional attachment becomes less and less. And before long, you're actually able to communicate. I spent a lot of time going into hospitals, visiting people that we're close to death. And I always, before I walk in the room, I always remind myself, whatever they're going through is theirs. I can't make it any different than what it is. If I try to take their pain away, all I do is make myself suffer. So it's okay for them to have that pain. And some of them were going through major amounts of physical pain. But as I keep my mind in balance and I'm sending them loving and kind thoughts, their mind starts to come up to the balance that my mind has. And before long, we start giggling and laughing about something, and all of a sudden their pain becomes less and less. I used to be a carpenter of sorts, and every now and then, holding a nail, I'd miss, and I would hit my thumb. Now, when you have that kind of pain, and it's there, and it's real, does it help for you to curse it, and get angry at it, and stomp around, and throw tools around, and that just makes that last longer. That makes that pain really, really intense. So I learned this. And what I learned to do was, whenever pain arises in my body, I start sending loving, kind thoughts to that spot. Why? Because it hurts. It wants loving and kind thoughts. I don't care if it's a headache, I don't care if you stub your toe, I don't care if you cut yourself, I don't care if you burn yourself. I have all kinds of scars on my hands right now because I burned myself. But that's okay. As soon as I feel that burn spot, I start sending loving and kind thoughts there. That's what it's telling me. That pain is telling me it needs love. And in no time at all, that pain disappears. So I hit my thumb, I look at that and go, wow, that was a good one. Okay, extend loving kindness to it, go back to work. Pain goes away in a short period of time. And it heals faster. You can try this yourself, especially with a wood-burning stove. You accidentally hit something that's real hot and it burns. Get angry at that. See what happens. How long does it take for that to heal? And the next time you do it, forgive that pain for being there. Start sending loving kindness to it. How fast does that heal? It's amazing, the difference. You heal a lot faster when you send loving and kind thoughts into a situation, into a physical pain, into any kind of sensation, into any kind of emotion. That's why you're here, to learn how to do that. That's what the whole process is about. Learn how you cause yourself pain and stop doing that. Learn what you worry about and laugh with it. It's nothing. It's only this. It's only some worry. I had a friend that her husband was going to have to go in for surgery for some kind of thing. I don't remember what it was, a spleen surgery or something like that. So I went to visit her the day before the operation. He's already in the hospital, and she says, well, you only stay a little while. I'm going to be worrying until he comes out of the... And I said, why? Well, what happens if? Well, what happens if? You can cross that fence when you get to it. Don't project what you think is going to happen or worry about what might happen. Psst. That's just nonsense daydreaming. So what you think and ponder on, that's the inclination of your mind. Just as in the last month of the rainy season in the autumn when the crops are thickened, a cowherd would guard his cows by constantly tapping and poking them in the side with a stick to check them and curb them. This is in Asia where all the fields don't have fences. Why is that? Because he sees that if he could be flogged, imprisoned, fined, or blamed if he let them stray into the crops. So too, I saw in unwholesome states dangers, degradation, and defilement, and in wholesome states the blessings of renunciation, the aspect of cleansing. As I abided thus diligent, ardent, and resolute, a thought of renunciation arose in me. I understood thus. This thought of renunciation has arisen in me. Renunciation, letting it go, it's not that important. We only make it important when we think and ponder on it. This does not lead to my own affliction, or to others' affliction, or to the affliction of both. It aids wisdom, does not cause difficulty, and leads to nibbana. If I think and ponder upon this thought even for a night, even for a day, even for a day and a night, I see nothing to fear from it. But with this excess thinking and pondering, I might tire myself. And when the body is tired, the mind becomes strained. And when mind is strained, it is far from being collected. So I steadied my mind internally, quieted it, brought it to stillness, and collected. Why is that? So that my mind should not be strained. In other words, you come back to your object of meditation. Lightly. You don't use a loving kindness as a stick to beat things away. Just lightly have fun with this. As I abided thus diligent, ardent, and resolute, a thought of non-ill will arose in me, or a thought of non-cruelty arose in me. I understood thus. This thought of non-ill will or non-cruelty has arisen in me. This does not lead to my own affliction or to others' affliction, or to the affliction of both. It aids wisdom, does not cause difficulties, and leads to nibbana. If I think and ponder upon this thought, even for a day, even for a night, even for a night and a day, I see nothing to fear from it. But with excessive thinking and pondering, I might tire my body. And when my body is tired, mind becomes strained. And when mind is strained, it is far from being collected. Monks, whatever a monk frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of their mind. Now, that makes me want to go to another sutta. Guess which one? Jeez. Okay. There are these 5 courses of speech that others may use when they address you. Their speech may be timely or untimely, true or untrue, gentle or harsh, connected with good or connected with harm, spoken with a mind of loving kindness or with inner hate. When others address you, their speech may be timely or untimely. When others address you, their speech may be true or untrue. When others address you, their speech may be gentle or harsh. When others address you, their speech may be connected with good or with harm. When others address you, their speech may be spoken with a mind of loving kindness or with inner hate. You should train thus. My mind will remain unaffected, and I shall utter no evil words. I shall abide compassionate for their welfare, and with a mind of loving kindness without inner hate, I shall abide pervading that person with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Starting with him, I shall abide pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how I should train. Okay, monks, even if bandits were to sever you savagely limb by limb with a 2-handled saw, he who gave rise to a mind of hate towards them would not be carrying out my teachings. That's pretty major. Wherein you should train thus, my mind will remain unaffected, and I shall utter no evil words. I shall abide compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, without inner hate. I shall abide pervading them with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Starting with them, I shall abide pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how I should train. Monks, if you keep this advice on the simile of the saw constantly in mind, do you see any course of speech, trivial or gross, that you could not endure? No, venerable sir. Therefore, monks, you should keep this advice on the simile of the saw constantly in mind. That will lead to your welfare and happiness for a long time. What do you think and ponder on? What do you want your mind to incline towards? Just as in the last month of the hot season, when all the crops have been brought in inside the villages, a cowherd would guard his cow while straying out at the root of a tree or out in the open, since he needs only to be mindful that the cows are there. So too there was need for me to be mindful that those states were there. Those uplifted states, those happy states. Tireless energy was aroused in me, and unremitting mindfulness was established. My body was tranquil and untroubled. My mind was collected and unified. Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, I entered upon and abided in the first jhana. Okay. Suppose, monks, that in a wooded range there was a great low-lying marsh near which a herd of deer lived. Then a man appeared desiring their ruin, harm, and bondage, and he closed off the safe and good path to be traveled joyfully, and he opened up a false path. And he put out a decoy and set up a dummy, so that the large herd of deer might later come upon calamity, disaster, and loss. But another man came desiring their good, welfare, and protection, and he reopened the safe and good path that led to their happiness, and he closed off the false path. And he removed the decoy and destroyed the dummy, so that the large herd of deer might later come to growth, increase, and fulfillment. Monks, I have given this simile in order to convey a meaning. This is the meaning. The great low-lying marsh is a term for sensual pleasures. The large herd of deer is a term for beings. A man desiring their ruin, harm, and bondage is a term for Mara, the evil one, the devil. The false path is a term for the wrong way of going. The decoy is a term for delight and lust. The dummy is a term for ignorance. The man desiring their good, welfare, and protection is a term for the Tathagata. That's what the Buddha called himself. Accomplished and fully awakened. The safe and good path is traveled joyfully in the terms of the Noble Eightfold Path. So, monks, the safe and good path to be traveled joyfully has been reopened by me. The wrong path has been closed off, the decoy removed, the dummy destroyed. What should be done for his disciples out of compassion by a teacher who seeks their welfare and has compassion for them, that I have done for you. There are these roots of trees, these empty huts. Meditate, monks, do not delay, or else you will regret it later. This is my instruction to you. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So, this gives you an idea of how you need to not get so involved in your thinking about and taking it personally. They're just thoughts. They're just opinions. They're just ideas. They're just concepts. So whenever you see that you're caught up in that, one, you can't criticize yourself for getting caught. Okay, you have old habits. Of course you're going to get caught for a little while until you get used to developing a new habit. So you can't criticize yourself. You hear me? Okay. Be nice to yourself. You're one of the good guys. So you let go and just turn this into a game. Okay, my mind wants to play this one for a little while. Fine, it can do that. As you get used to recognizing when your mind is distracted and let go of that distraction and relax and smile and come back, it gets easier because you get used to those distractions. Now, the first day of a meditation is what I call the meditation blues, because this is the hardest part of the meditation, is the first day, because your mind's still out there, thinking this, thinking that, just running all over the place, and it's hard. It gets easier, I promise. The thing that you have to really recognize is whether you're smiling or not. And if you're not smiling, I don't care whether you feel like it or not, smile. There's an interesting study that was done not too long ago, a few years, on what happens to your mind when you smile. And the study was talking about even if your mind is unhappy for whatever reason, or depressed, and you put a smile on your lips, your mind looks down and said, well, I'm smiling. I must be feeling better than I really feel. So let's go with the depression. The corners of your mouth are real important. When they go up, so does your mental state. When they go down, so does your mental state. Smile more. Lightly do this meditation. Now, I prefer that you do the meditation in the Dhamma hall, in here. And when you leave your cabin, as much of a pain in the neck as it is, you have to turn the heater off, because it's really expensive. And things are getting more expensive all the time. So we want to conserve that as much as we can. You can turn these highlights off, and the lights around here, it's a nice light to sit in.
Do they leave the pilot on?
Yes, I believe the pilot.
Yeah.
Don't shut it off all the way. Just turn it down so the little pilot light is lit, okay?
Yeah. Keep your meditation going all the time. When you're walking, when you're sitting, cut down on the amount of talking. Okay? You can compare notes later. You're only going to be here for a few days, so I want you to have the best benefit you can. Okay? When do you have to leave? Sunday? How far is Franklin from here?
About 7 hours.
That's what I was thinking. You'll have a much better drive home. It's supposed to be beautiful Sunday.
50s.
Sunday or Monday?
Both. We're going to have like 3 days of 50s.
Oh,
and above
in
freezing at
town,
night.
in town today, they said Sunday was going to be way low again.
There's gonna be a week where it doesn't get below freezing,
I've never seen
according
such
to
a
the
thing
forecast
this year.
today.
Wow.
What a bunch of rookies. Although
No.
last night was, I had to keep my blankets on all night. Almost see my breath.
My heat
Oh,
went
at
out.
-7, I suspect so.
I ran out of propane around 2 o'clock in the morning. I laughed. I
I was
did.
sleeping Alvin over to comfort. I'm sorry.
I laughed. And I put my coat on and I went to bed. Till morning.
So, do you have any questions? Don't be shy. It sounds like the Chinese.
Adam doesn't have a question. He's waiting. Wow.
Okay, let's share some merit then. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty powers, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.